Greetings, Human Life Forms. I'm the Meister, and welcome to my official Super Bowl 59 predictions. This is basically it in terms of season predictions for me, guys. It's gone by super fast. It really has. Sad to see that we're already here. We're already Super Bowl 59, right around the corner. It's absolutely insane. But real quickly, my final season record ended out being 195-77, just 5 games short of 200. By far, my best season of predictions yet. So hopefully I can increase that a bit next season, but I feel like it's kind of hard to do much better than that, at least for me anyway. But without further ado, I feel like it's necessary before everyone's like, what the hell is this? This isn't what the playoffs look like. These are my AFC playoff seedings that I had all the way back in August/September. So obviously, this was very, very wrong, as you can see. Chiefs got the 1 seed. I had them as the 4 seed. I don't know what I was thinking there. Bills, I was pretty close. I had them as the 3. It's only a 1 seed difference. Texans were 2 seeds off. But I got all the division winners correct, as you guys can see, just all in different orders. Wild card, I just completely messed up entirely. None of those teams made the playoffs. I will say, though, the Bengals are really close to getting the 7, so I almost called that back in September, having them as a 7 seed, so slightly proud of myself for that. But I feel like going into the season, Jets at 5, I feel like that was fair. 'Cause I wasn't going to overhype them like Peter Schrager and put them number 1 seed. I wasn't going to do all that. But had him as the 5 seed, obviously, just a mess what happened. That's this season for them. So, unfortunate for the Jets. Very fortunate for me. Then I had the Browns at 6. That definitely looks really bad. I've bought into the talent that's been on the Browns roster for so long. Every single season, I always put them in the playoffs, it feels like. And I was like, what if Deshaun Watson does play better? Then if Deshaun Watson plays well, this Browns team is going to be, like, in the thick of things. That's kind of where my mind was at, but, of course, the whole Deshaun Watson thing didn't really work out whatsoever. So, another painful shot to my early predictions here, but looking over at the NFC side of things, not looking too much better. Eagles only 1 spot off. I feel like I was pretty good with the Eagles. 49ers, I'm not going to say I was wrong about the 49ers. Like, you can't predict injuries, and I feel like if the 49ers were healthy, I feel like Niners probably would have been around the 2-3 range for sure. Falcons, they were close to being their number 3, came down to week 18. But of course, both Tampa Bay and Atlanta weren't going to make the playoffs, so it was only one or the other. And as you can see, I had both of them making it here, so didn't end up being the case, but the Buccaneers did get the 3 seed in real life, so at least they got an NFC South team there. And then I had the Lions at the 4 seed. Was not expecting them to be as dominant as they were this season. They definitely proved me wrong quite a bit there. And Packers at 5. I feel like that's kind of where everyone was kind of putting them right around that 5 spot. Vikings are there instead. I don't even have the Vikings making the playoffs, so shame on me, I guess. Dallas, I had them at 6. I felt like they were overrated going into the season. That's why I kind of had them at 6. But I almost wanted to leave Dallas off the list. But with how everyone was talking about Dallas, it'll still be good. They still got Dak Prescott, got all those weapons, blah, 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 blah. In my head, I was still thinking, like, well, they have no running game, but I'm like, well, they do got a good defense. If the passing game's good, how bad can the running game be? So I had them at 6. But yeah, it turns out it can get pretty bad. It did have some injuries too, but even when they were healthy in the beginning of the season, they were not playing up to par. And then Tampa Bay had them at the 7 seed. Obviously, they went to the 3 seed. So, honestly, the Buccaneers, they kind of played how I expected them to. Besides from Baker Mayfield, I don't think anyone expected Baker Mayfield to play as great as he did this season. Over 40 touchdown passes, but other than that, it's about where I saw Tampa Bay being. It's just the fact that Atlanta kind of sucked. Especially if Kirk Cousins just played fine throughout the season, they would have been fine. They probably would have won the division. But Kirk Cousins had to just play like utter ass the entire that whole 4 or 5 week stretch there. So they had to bench him for Michael Penix, which is really what killed him. But I feel like if Kirk Cousins just would have stayed consistent and would have stayed like an average mid quarterback, they would have been fine. They probably would have won the division. But again, didn't turn out to be the case. And this was my Super Bowl 59 prediction back from September. I had the Texans beating the Philadelphia Eagles by a score of 34-31. I bought into the C.J. Stroud hype, bought into the Houston Texans hype. I bought into all that sorts of hype down there in Houston. Obviously, not really working out. Obviously, this Super Bowl matchup is still possible. The score is still possible. Not too much likely anymore. Spoiler alert, this is definitely changing. This is definitely going to change. Philadelphia, I feel like it's definitely still a possibility that they can make it to a Super Bowl, but obviously you got other teams in the NFC like Detroit. If you still want to throw Minnesota in there, go ahead. So still a couple teams that could give Philadelphia some issues, but as for the Texans are really giving themselves issues right now. I mean, I know Stephon Diggs is out for the season, Tank Dell's out for the season, which really hurts, but still you shouldn't play as bad as you are, especially if you're C.J. Stroud, and I get the offensive line hasn't been protecting as great as people thought they would be. And it really is what led to C.J. Stroud's decline this season, so sophomore slump, all that stuff. I still believe in C.J. Stroud. I don't know if they're necessarily going to fix their issues now, because you have to fix them now because it's playoff football time. But going into next season and the season after, I feel like the Texans, if they can get their offensive line situation figured out, I feel like the defense played pretty decent. I feel like it needs some bit better coaching on the defensive side of the ball for them, but overall, I mean, I'm not going to be going into the future. I'm not too worried about the Texans, but definitely worried about them winning a playoff game right now. So this was my Super Bowl prediction, and this is how the AFC ended up turning out, which I kind of already mentioned a little bit. Chiefs getting the 1 seed because they just know how to win, apparently. Bills getting the 2 seed because the Chiefs have to always be just barely better than the Buffalo Bills. Got the Baltimore Ravens at number 3, Houston Texans at number 4. And then as the wild cards, you got the LA Chargers, which there's some hype around the Chargers, and if they can make the playoffs in the first year with Jim Harbaugh. I try not to buy into it too much just because I've only been a football fan since 2019. It's 5-6 years ago now. So I don't know if he was really going to fix things because I haven't seen it for myself. I know he coached the 49ers to a Super Bowl. I know he took Michigan to a national championship, but I never necessarily firsthand or with my eyes seeing how good he can really coach, and he definitely can coach really well. They built that team pretty well in the offseason, and that running game really helped them get to where they are with the number 5 seed right here. And, of course, the draft, as always, Ladd McConkey is an absolute stud. Steelers at 6. Steelers were a team that I was really thinking about putting them in the playoffs back in September, but with how the quarterback situation was, I was a bit iffy on it. And I see why people are iffy on it because it's definitely not looking too well right now, but first 13 games of their season, they were looking really, really good. So, that's the potential Pittsburgh has. It's just if they can stay consistent with that and be consistent at the quarterback position is really the whole thing with the Steelers. And then for the Broncos, that's insane what's happening in Denver, man. It really is. I thought the Broncos were probably going to be the worst team in football going into September. I really did think that. I didn't really think they had much of anybody. And I wasn't going to rate them higher just because they drafted a rookie quarterback. You never know how rookies are going to end up performing in the NFL. So I never like to overrate teams based on, draft picks too much. But Sean Payton really turned the ship around very quickly in Denver. I know he got some heat his first season. But they are definitely improving. Denver could be a scary team in the next couple of years. They really can. But first year of Bo Nix already in the playoffs, so Denver definitely exceeding expectations. And then your NFC division winners, Detroit absolutely dominating in the regular season, earned that number 1 seed. Got Philadelphia at the 2 seed, another team that did dominate for most of the season, just really in the beginning in like September, that kind of hurt them a bit. Tampa Bay at 3, just getting the division over Atlanta. And then you got the Los Angeles Rams at number 4, and you could thank the San Francisco 49ers for that. I still feel like if the Niners are healthy, that was the Niners' division to lose. But the Rams took advantage of all the injuries in the Niners and took over the division. And now we got our wild cards. The Minnesota Vikings at number 5. Vikings definitely proved me wrong. I thought the Vikings were going to be another one of those teams like, oh boy, it's not going to look too good because you have Sam Darnold, the quarterback. But Sam Darnold has played fantastic this season. Of course, he's in the MVP conversation a little bit. But I will say that one game against Detroit, Week 18, was a little concerning. But overall, really great season from the Vikings. Just really, really impressed. Commanders at 6. You can thank Jaden Daniels for getting them here because Commanders were another team. I loved what they did in the offseason. I really did. Like, they really went out there and got some studs. But it was really, again, the quarterback position that was the big question mark for me. I know he won the Heisman and all that. And he was a great quarterback prospect, all this. But, again, I don't like to overrate quarterbacks and overrate teams based on drafting and everything. But Commanders definitely had a really good season. And as well, same here with the Green Bay Packers. Just kind of unfortunate that they're at the 7th seed, second year in a row, because quite a few people were thinking Super Bowl for this Packers team. But, of course, you have Detroit in the division, and now apparently you got Minnesota in the division, playing really well also. So it's just a lot of, like, the Packers are a really good football team. It's just that a couple of football teams, like you look at the Commanders and Vikings, unexpectedly did really well this season. So if those teams didn't overachieve this season, you would be seeing the Green Bay Packers at the 5 seed more than likely. So just a little unfortunate for them, but still getting to the playoffs, so good for them. But without further ado, we got to get into these playoff predictions here. I'll have the times and TV stations for the first round because they haven't named them for the Divisional Championship or Super Bowl. Well, Super Bowl's going to be on Fox, we know that, but for times and everything. Only going to be shown for the wild card round here if you guys even care. But for this first matchup, you have the LA Chargers going into Houston to take on the Texans. And first game, obviously 4:30 Saturday, just the new tradition to have the Texans as the first team playing in the playoffs. But I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Chargers to win this. Obviously going into the season, this is kind of a big upset for my predictions. This looks bad for my predictions because I picked Houston to win the AFC and win the Super Bowl. And I have them getting first rounded here to the Chargers team, which I don't even see them making the playoffs to begin the season. But I just feel like the wheels have really fallen off of Houston these past couple weeks. I think everyone's kind of seen it. Everyone's kind of writing them off now at this point, myself included. The Texans want to win this game. I mean, I feel like they definitely can. I'm going to step up in defense. C.J. Stroud definitely needs to play better. If C.J. Stroud doesn't play any better than he has in the weeks prior, they can kiss their Super Bowl dreams goodbye for this season because this Chargers team is a consistent football team, and sure, they may not be great against those really good football teams out there, but are we still going to put the Texans in the category of a great football team? I'm not so sure about that anymore, but congratulations to the Chargers. Didn't even see them making the playoffs, and I have you winning a playoff game here, so congratulations. Huge season for the Chargers. I mean, I feel like if I was a Chargers fan, I'd be ecstatic, pun intended, for this. But moving on, we got Saturday Night Football on Prime Video. Unfortunately, it's the Steelers at the Ravens, AFC North divisional rivalry game. And I will say for these games, it is always so hard to predict because they're division rivals. And they both went 1-1 against each other this season. Pittsburgh won the first meeting. Baltimore destroyed them in the second meeting. So it's the rubber match. Who's going to win this one? And the Steelers really remind me of the Houston Texans because they did start off the year solid. I mean, a lot of people were kind of iffy on the Texans even to start the season because they weren't looking as good as people thought, but they were still winning football games. Steelers are just winning football games. Like, they just had a formula for winning these games, and they started off the season again 10-3, but had that bit of a collapse. So with that being said, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens in a close one over the Steelers. I think the Steelers defense is going to give Lamar Jackson some fits in this one. Might not have Zay Flowers, which will definitely hurt in a game like this. But Steelers' offense has just been looking absolutely terrible these past couple weeks. It really has. And it's almost looking like benching Russell Wilson might have not been the answer, and he maybe should have stuck with Justin Fields. So, it is what it is for Pittsburgh, but it feels like this happens all the time. They start off really good, their offense makes plays, and then all of a sudden just everything stops clicking in their offense, and it just shuts down in the most crucial part of the season. So it's really unfortunate for them. I'm sorry, Steelers fans, but I have you losing to the Ravens, but I'm sure you were expecting it because most people are expecting you to lose. So give me the Ravens to win this one in a close one, 20-17. As we move on to the Sunday at 1 o'clock game, and I think you guys know who I'm going to go with in this one. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills that I didn't put the score in, so shame on me for that. But I got the Bills winning this one over the Denver Broncos. I feel like this game could be closer than people think. I did see someone on CBS Sports actually predict the Broncos to win this game, so I shut that off immediately. But I think the Bills can put up 30 on this team. I would probably say no more than 31. I feel like 31 might be being a little bit generous too, because the Broncos have a really good defense, a really good secondary. So the Bills are really going to need to grind out yardage on this team. But this game definitely falls on the shoulders of Bo Nix quite a bit here. The rookie quarterback going into environments such as this in Buffalo in the playoffs as well just feels like a bit of a too tall task for him. And plus, again, like I just mentioned, he is a rookie quarterback. So I would say something probably along the lines, maybe like 31-17, I would say. So kind of a comfortable win for the Bills here as they take care of business against the Broncos and move on to the divisional round. As we move on to the game that I just showed for half a second, it's the Green Bay Packers at the Philadelphia Eagles. Rematch of a Week 1 game where it was a really close game with the Eagles just barely pulled it out in the end. I feel like this is worth noting. Jalen Hurts still in the concussion protocol. He has not practiced in weeks. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on going into this game. I feel like he probably will play, but with concussions you really never know. But it is the playoffs, so I'd expect him to be cleared to play in this game. And for the Packers, I feel really bad for him because they lost Christian Watson for the end of this season and probably at least half of next season, suffering an ACL injury last week in a game that ultimately didn't mean anything for them because the Commanders beat the Cowboys. But I understand why they played their starters because they were trying to get seedings and everything. So I understand them playing their starters. And Jordan Love got banged up in that game too. So pretty unfortunate for the Packers. So have to go into Philadelphia limping a little bit. And I'm going to have the Eagles winning in this one 31-23. I think Saquon Barkley's going to have a nice day in this one. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to be too much affected from missing practice these past couple weeks. I think Christian Watson, losing him is definitely going to hurt him in this football game. So I think the Eagles defense has been playing really great football. And I think the Eagles are arguably they are a top 5 football team for sure in the NFL. And the Packers definitely are not. So it was kind of an easy one for me here to pick the Eagles. But you never know, though, because Green Bay went into Dallas last year since 7th seed and upset Dallas. So you never know. And it was another NFC East team on the road as well. So look out for Green Bay. But I'm still going to take the Philadelphia Eagles to win this one by a score of 31-23. As we move along to Sunday Night Football on NBC. It is the 6th seed Washington Commanders traveling into Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. This was by far the hardest game for me to predict. By far. I feel like the Commanders, just neutral site, whatever, what have you. I would probably give the edge to the Commanders here. But there's 2 factors that really make me slide to the Buccaneers in this one. and that is for two reasons. They're at home, and Washington does have a rookie quarterback. And I know rookie quarterbacks can win playoff games. I know. C.J. Stroud literally did it last year, and Jaden Daniels has been looking oh so fantastic this season. But you've never, have you ever seen, a rookie quarterback make a run that C.J. Stroud did last year? Especially in the playoffs? No. And in this, I know Jaden Daniels has been playing great here too, but Baker Mayfield's also been playing insane too. We gotta give credit to Baker Mayfield. He's been having an outstanding season, and he's a veteran. He's been to the playoffs before. This team has been to the playoffs before. The Commanders fairly new to the playoffs, and also the whole situation there. And I already feel like this season for the Commanders is already a win in itself. Just being able to make the playoffs again with a rookie quarterback, much similar to the Broncos. Just an amazing accomplishment for them. And if they were to go into Tampa Bay and win a playoff game as well, that would be really impressive. But I'm not going to predict that. I'm going to do the safe pick here. Pick the Buccaneers to win in a close one, 27-25, and advance to the divisional round of the playoffs, as we have one more game left. And that is on Monday Night Football. It is the number 5 seed Minnesota Vikings taking on the LA Rams at the number 4 seed. Again, if the Niners weren't injured, the Niners would probably be in the situation here, and this game would be a lot more interesting, I think. But this game will definitely still be interesting for the main purpose or reason being that how much the Vikings offense struggled against the Lions last week. And I feel like a lot of people are going to be scared to pick the Vikings in this game, and I think a lot of people are going to pick the Rams because of their performance last year. But I'm still going to go with the Minnesota Vikings. 28-23 is going to be my score for this one. I'm not going to veer against Minnesota just because they lost one game. And I know it was a really big game and everything, but I'm not going to veer away from them for losing one game. They've been fantastic all season long. Sam Darnold has been great all season long. The defense has been outstanding all season long. And the Rams were a very up-and-down team throughout the season. Well, they were very down to start. They skyrocketed against Buffalo, of course. But I feel like the Vikings are still the better team here. It will be a little interesting to see how this plays out, though, because there is a scenario, where the Vikings might have gotten figured out last week, and the Vikings can't turn it around in time to be a playoff team in the LA Rams. So this will be an interesting game for sure, but I'm going to go with the Vikings here. They've just been too good all season for me not to have them win a playoff game. So I'm going to go with the Vikings in this one, 28-23. As we move along to the divisional round matchups, as you can see right here, we got the number 3 Ravens at the number 2 Bills. Repeat of a divisional game between these two all the way back in 2020. And then you got two divisional matchups being the Chargers at the Chiefs, Vikings at the Lions, and then another Week 1 game from this season, Bucks at Eagles, if it was a Week 1 game. It was an early season game, I'm pretty sure. But rematch of a playoff game from last year, too, because Tampa Bay beat Philadelphia last season in the playoffs. But in Philadelphia this time around. But we're going to get it right into the first matchup here. Number 3 seeded Ravens at the number 2 seeded Bills. Huge game. Huge game. And before anyone even thinks about it, this game has nothing to do with who's the MVP. Nothing to do with it, for the mere fact that after the regular season's over, that's already going to be when the voters have to vote. They cannot vote once the playoffs begin. So that whole conversation is over and done with already. Just figured I'd throw that out there just in case I see people on social media saying that stuff, because, it's not true. But in this game in particular, obviously early in the season, Baltimore crushed the Bills. Bills could not stop the run. They could not stop Lamar Jackson. Just a very ugly game for the Bills, and it was their worst loss of the season. But this time it is in Buffalo. And I'm going to say, honestly here, this game really is a 50-50 game to me. This game really is. But as you guys can see what's behind me and what I'm wearing and everything, you guys probably already know I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills winning this one, 27-24. And the main thing I'm going to hold on to for this game is the fact that Lamar Jackson always tends to struggle in the playoffs. And I will continue to say that because he had a terrible performance against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game last season. And he did play all right against the Texans. I mean, they didn't even need him to play all that great against the Texans because Stroud was really just shooting them in the foot in that game. But for this matchup for Buffalo specifically, I feel like if they can stop the run, if they can limit Derrick Henry enough in that run game enough, and the Ravens are going to have to rely on Lamar Jackson to win him this game, I feel like that is where the Bills want to be in this game, is to have the ball in Lamar Jackson's hands rather than Derrick Henry's hands. And if that's going to be the case, it's really going to be Lamar versus Allen in that case. And I'm going to go with Josh Allen in that matchup. Of course I will. But if the Bills can't stop the run in this game, the Ravens are going to win. Saying that right now. But we're going to move on to the next divisional matchup. It is the Buccaneers at the Philadelphia Eagles. And this, it could be a close game. It could be a close game. I'm not sure if it will be or not, but I'm going to go with the Eagles winning this one 34-24. Buccaneers, I feel like, have also been a pretty inconsistent team this season. Of course, Baker Mayfield's putting up amazing numbers, but I feel like there's games where the offense around Mayfield just doesn't help him out. Like, the receivers struggle, offensive line struggles to protect him, and I feel like they have games where it's just all around a mess for Tampa. And you can throw the defense in that mix as well. There's games where the defense is very underwhelming. There's games where the defense is very overwhelming. You know, it's pretty up and down, I feel like, for Tampa Bay. And the Eagles have just been that consistent team. And I feel like this will probably be the game that Saquon Barkley might have his best performance of the season in, is against the Buccaneers here. So I think the Eagles are going to be fluent in scoring some points. I think their defense is going to make a couple huge stops against Tampa Bay. And that will more than likely end their season. So the Eagles go into the championship game as well. As we move along, back to Arrowhead, where the Chiefs will host the LA Chargers. Another divisional matchup game. I feel like for this game, I mean, it is a divisional rivalry game. I mentioned earlier with the Ravens and the Steelers that you never know what can happen in these games. And you really don't, unless it's with the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm going to take the Chiefs winning this one 28-17 to host the AFC Championship game, I believe, for the 6th or 7th straight season now, which is absolutely insane. But I got the Chiefs winning this one. Just going to be another one of those games where if the offense for Kansas City is going to do enough, and the defense is going to make a lot of huge stops, and they're going to be able to stop the run, which is the thing that the Chargers love to do. They're going to have to rely on Justin Herbert to win this game and Quentin Johnston to help him win this game, and I don't know if that's going to happen. So I got the Chiefs going to take care of business at home in this one and advance to the AFC Championship game. And with that, one divisional game left remaining. The Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. A rematch of the game that just happened last week, where the Lions absolutely killed them. Really tough game for me to pick here. Just kidding. I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions, winning this one 28-24. Lions, I feel like are probably at this point just the better football team. I still feel like the Vikings have the better defense. I really felt like that last week because I picked the Vikings to beat them in Week 8, and the Lions being in Week 18. Obviously that didn't happen. Defense played amazing for Detroit in that one, so I'm guessing it's gonna be a lot closer. I don't think it's gonna be a blowout again. I think Sam Darnold's gonna play much better in this game, but I think the Lions' defense are still gonna make a couple plays, and I think that's really gonna be the difference. And I think the Lions' offense is just gonna make one more play than that Vikings offense. So give me the Lions to win this one. They go to the NFC Championship game for the second straight season. Is we got a battle of 1 and 2 seeds in the AFC and in the NFC. And this is really going to be where it gets interesting, folks. It really is. But we're going to start with the Bills at the Chiefs. Another game when the Bills have to go to Arrowhead. And before you guys think I'm going to pick the Bills here in this one, just give me a second to discuss my thoughts here. Chiefs, obviously, have been winning every game no matter how bad they've looked, no matter how good they've looked. They've been winning football games. Unless, of course, it was against the Bills. And that being, they did struggle against them. Specifically their defense. That was their defense's worst game they've had in years. So, excluding, of course, Week 18 last week because they didn't play a single starter. But that's besides the point here. Bills, Allen, most likely going to win MVP. They've been playing amazing this season. I absolutely love them, but in a situation like this, it really feels like at this point, it's just becoming an endless loop of the same in the NFL, which is really sad. I mean, of course, they're going to give hope to teams that, never really have hope, like the Bills never really used to have hope. Now they do. Lions fans never had hope. Now they do. It's like stuff like that. Teams have like very promising players like Cardinals, Marvin Harrison Jr., Giants with Malik Neighbors. You got the Broncos, Bo Nix. Haven't made the playoffs in 10 years. It's feels like maybe the tide is turning a little bit, but at the same time, I am waiting for this to happen. And I'm waiting for the Chiefs to win again. And as much as I don't want to see it happen, I'm going to root for the Bills the entire way through, of course. Of course I will. But I really do think we can beat the Chiefs. I will say, I really do believe that we can beat the Chiefs. But there becomes a point when you play them, you have this storyline, like it's the script. It's the NFL script. Beat them in the regular season, lose to them in the playoffs. That's kind of just been how it's been going. And I know if I was a Bills fan, anyone that watches this, like, oh, of course, clicking away, I would do the same thing. I would do the exact same thing. I'm being one of those people that I absolutely hate on television, saying, oh, they just can't beat them in the playoffs. But in the past couple of years, too, it's been like, oh, if they're going to beat them any year in the playoffs, it's this year or it's this year, And it just hasn't happened. It just flat out hasn't happened. So, until it does happen, at this point, I'm going to pick Kansas City to win. So, give me the Chiefs to win this one in a high-scoring game, 38-34. Bills' defense has been very concerning to me, especially these past couple of weeks. So, that's why I have it as high-scoring as I do. So, we're going to make the Chiefs' offense look amazing again for the first time in a year and a half. The Chiefs are going to win the AFC and advance to the Super Bowl, as we have the Eagles at the Lions for the NFC Championship game. And this is where you begin to wonder about how long the Lions going to be able to keep winning games while missing so many of their players on defense. And it might not happen. They might just cruise along and win a Super Bowl. You never know. It definitely can easily happen. But back to what I said earlier also, the fact that the NFL just likes to give other teams hope. Likes to give the NFL fans hope just to kind of go back to the script and just ruin it all for us. I feel like that's going to be a big scenario here. I have the Eagles defeating the Detroit Lions in Detroit to go to the Super Bowl. Now, this is probably a bit bold. I know the Lions are favorites to win the Super Bowl, I believe, right now. But, it's kind of just one of those things where it's like, it's too good to be true, It's like, you really want, I think most of America really wants to see Bills-Lions Super Bowl, just because the Bills haven't made it over 30 years, never won a Super Bowl before. Lions have never made a Super Bowl before, so it's just a great storyline there, who's going to win their first Super Bowl. But I feel like the NFL is going to be a bunch of assholes, and the Eagles are going to win this game. Which means, with that being said, we're going to have a repeat of a Super Bowl that we had 2 years ago when the Chiefs first got their second Super Bowl at Mahomes. Third overall. It's the Chiefs versus the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Still have the Eagles making the Super Bowl. It's definitely still possible, definitely still doable. Going up against the Chiefs again in the Super Bowl. And it's another one of those things that kind of feels fitting as well in this, because the Chiefs started this quest for their three-peat, beating the Eagles, and then they get a repeat matchup playing the Niners, the first Super Bowl matchup Mahomes had. Chiefs won their second in a row. And then they go to play Philadelphia for a chance to have the first ever three-peat in Super Bowl NFL history, really. And they will complete the task at hand. They will beat the Philadelphia Eagles 24-20. This will not be as high scoring as that last Super Bowl was. It's going to be a battle of two defenses. And it's really going to come down to which team knows how to win the most games, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. It's really annoying, and the Eagles do have Saquon Barkley too, so I feel like if this matchup were to happen, that, Saquon Barkley would definitely get him more than 20 points on the board, but it just feels like really every game that the Chiefs defense just knows how to shut down every team's best player, except if it's Josh Allen in the regular season, or it's Josh Allen in general, really. But that is where I see it going this postseason. So let me know in the comments, wherever, what your predictions for this playoffs are. I'm going to be rooting for the Bills. Let me know who you guys are going to be rooting for in this one, in these playoffs. Yeah, it's really unfortunate to see the Chiefs on my computer screen right now. I did it to myself, really, but, it just feels like that's what's going to happen. It's just my feeling right now. I hope some of you guys feel differently. Please, someone convince me that this isn't going to happen, because I would hate it if this were to happen. I absolutely hate it. But it is definitely a possibility. So, with that being said, that concludes the predictions for this NFL season. Content will not stop, though. The OT podcast will continue. It will go on throughout the NFL offseason. We got draft talk, free agency talk, more predictions to come. So stay tuned for all that fun stuff. And I just want to say thank you guys for all the support this season also as well. Almost at 700 subscribers. Maybe we can get it before the end of this postseason. We'll see. I'd greatly appreciate it. But if you guys like what I do on my channel here, subscribe would be greatly appreciated. Thumbs up if you guys enjoyed this video. And yeah, with that being said, I don't have much else to say except Life Forms out.